Hello, and welcome to The Art of Being Selfish. I am Dr. Sims, a licensed psychologist, and on this channel, I discuss different ways for you to take care of yourself or be selfish so that you feel nourished and filled enough to take care of others. Now, while we will be discussing topics related to mental health on this channel, this is not a substitute for therapy. So in today's episode, we are going to be concluding our forgiveness series and discussing being selfish relationally. Because forgiveness or the lack thereof can significantly impact our relationships, I think it's important that we discuss this before we bring our series to a close. So today, we're going to be talking about how the lack of forgiveness can significantly damage relationships with others, the benefits of forgiveness in our relationships, as well as some practical ways that we can continue through the healing process after or as we are forgiving. Now, when you don't forgive, one of three things happens, or any combination of these three things. One is that you don't feel as connected with God. Two, you feel very burdened and weighed down by guilt on yourself. And three, you don't have intimate, genuine, quality relationships with other people. Or you can significantly damage having relationships with people. So in the first episode of our forgiveness series, I talked about the spiritual aspects of forgiveness and how if you're not forgiving, you're missing out on a lot of the spiritual gifts and blessings that God has to offer. But it also impacts your relationship with God as well. So generally when people feel unforgiving, they feel anger, they feel bitterness and resentment, it will shut you down and you might stop praying, you might stop confessing your sins, and you just might in general not feel like you're able to bring all of that stuff to God. Now, when you don't forgive yourself, and we talked about this last week, you experience a lot of guilt. But guilt manifests itself in a lot of different ways in our everyday life. So when you start to feel guilt, you start to feel like you're not worthy, like you don't deserve good things in life. You start to feel as if you can't ask for the things that you want. Kind of in a way, start to punish yourself or be very harsh and critical of yourself for all the bad things that you have done in your past. You might start to feel like you're less than, and it can completely shatter your entire self-esteem. So in your day-to-day life, you don't ask for the things you want or need. You might let people use you or take advantage of you. You might feel bad when you do stand up for yourself. You may stay in relationships that you don't necessarily need to stay in or that have become toxic. So there are lots of ways that guilt can play out in your day-to-day life. Now, when you don't forgive others, you tend to have a hard time being vulnerable in relationships. You have built up this wall to protect yourself and to guard your heart so that people don't hurt you in the same way that that one person or those other people have hurt you in the past. You tend to not trust people, so those people that always talk about having trust issues is probably from a lack of forgiveness. You don't want to set yourself up for failure, so instead of putting yourself at that risk, you avoid having quality, deep, intimate relationships with people. If the person that you're in relationship with reminds you of the person that hurt you, sometimes you can start to take that anger out on that person. So because you're a lot of times either aren't able to or aren't willing to be angry at the source of your lack of forgiveness, that anger comes out and manifests in other ways towards the people who are standing in for that person in your life at that time. Another way that this can play out is that you invest a lot of time and energy into hurting that person in the way that they've hurt you. And so that just it can be something as simple as just making little petty comments or making little slick comments on the side to throw jabs at them so that they start feeling some kind of pain, even if it's not the same exact pain that you're feeling. Our lack of forgiveness often bleeds over into other relationships. So you'll hear people talk about having mommy or daddy issues. And so you take years and years and years of how that parent treated or hurt you, and then you transfer that to someone that's in your life right now. And sometimes this is at a very unintentional, unconscious way, but if it's unchecked and it's not addressed, you will continue to keep making the people in your life now pay for the offenses of the people in your past. And I really wonder what it would be like if you just let go of all of those harbored feelings towards them, release that energy, and live your life in the present moment right now. But what happens when you do forgive? When you do forgive, you open up the possibility, you open up the opportunity to have these strong, solid connections with God, love on yourself, and have deep, intimate, genuine, authentic relationships with other people. And you can lie to yourself and say that you don't need anybody else, that you don't need relationships with other people, but we all need other people. And what is the point of being in relationships with other people if they aren't genuine, authentic, and real? You have to be able to forgive to be able to have those kinds of relationships. When you're not burdened down with the weight of disappointment and resentment and bitterness and anger and guilt, it allows your heart to receive so much more, and it allows you to draw closer with your spiritual connection. Your heart is hardened by these emotions, and so it doesn't allow positive energy to be flowing through it. And it is so appropriate to pray about these feelings. A lot of times we avoid praying about these things because it's like, God doesn't want to hear about these bad feelings. God doesn't want to hear about any of this. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. If you're having those feelings, pray about them so that He can help you to overcome those feelings, soften your heart, and allow you to start bringing more positive energy into your life. When you've forgiven yourself, you recognize your true value. You recognize how much you are actually worth, how much you actually deserve. You recognize that you are worthy of love and being cared for, especially loving and caring for yourself. You do things and behave in ways that are in line with you caring for and loving for yourself. You feel more confident in your ability to take care of yourself. You practice being more selfish. You start asking for the things that you know you deserve, and you just open yourself up to receiving so much more from people, from God, and from the universe. When you've forgiven others, you open yourself up to being more vulnerable. And yes, being vulnerable is a good thing. It can feel risky, but it is a good thing. And by being vulnerable, you allow yourself to experience those genuine, authentic, real relationships. You don't interact with people out of fear. You aren't controlled by your past. You're kind and you're compassionate and you're open and willing to be in the present moment and build relationships with people from where you are now. You feel less anxious about relationships. You feel less guarded, and you allow yourself to trust others. You treat each individual offense that a person makes as each individual offense, not as a list of all the other offenses that they have made in your life or that someone else has made in your life. And you just don't let the past control you anymore. And just to be clear, I'm not just talking about forgiving people who have offended you years ago or keep offending you over several years and over a long time. No, I'm talking about forgiving people on a day-to-day basis. We all know that there are those people who daily we need to forgive because they do something that gets under our skins on a daily basis, on a minute-to-minute basis, on a moment-to-moment basis. That coworker that irks your nerves every day at work, you have to forgive her. Your significant other who does the same thing over and over and over again, even though you told them, like, this drives me crazy, you still have to forgive them over and over and over again. Remember, forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. It is for you to relieve yourself of all of that energy that you have pent up that is weighing you down. Because while they are over there living their best life, you are upset, irritated, seething, and steaming. And I'm just confused about who's actually losing in that situation. So the last thing I want to talk about is just how do you interact with people after you've forgiven them or as you're going through your healing process. As I've said, I want to say every week that we've done this series, reconciliation is not a requirement for forgiveness. You do not have to reconcile with the person that you're forgiving in order for you to forgive them. But what I will encourage you to do is decide early on in the forgiveness process, what do you want your relationship to be with that person that you're trying to forgive? Because that is going to help determine how you move forward with that forgiveness process. But also understanding that your goal and how you want the relationship to move forward can change as you're going through the process. So if you don't want a relationship, you just want healing, you just want to move forward, you just want to release, then just focus on you and God. Every time your attention strays down to what they did, what they said, bring your attention back to focusing on you and God. Focusing on what it is that you want. Focusing on what it is that you want to get out of this. If you want healing, focus on your healing. Focus on what it's going to look like when you are fully and completely over that person. Focus on what your life is like now. What are the beautiful things that are happening? What are the things that you are grateful for? Even if it's just that you are still here today. Whatever that is, focus on you, focus on your goals, focus on what is important to you, and completely ignore everything that person did to you. Focus your attention on what you're doing right now. You've already decided that forgiveness is where you want to start with. So to keep bringing up and keep thinking about it and keep focusing on and keep ruminating on what that person did to you only makes the pain a lot deeper. And if you feel like you're having a hard time with being able to not think about what happened to you, go talk to a therapist. Now, this second step is a little more challenging, especially if it is a person who you want to or have to have some kind of surface level relationship with. It can be more difficult, but if you're wanting to grow and you're wanting to be a better person, then you might just have to push yourself. So the next thing that you want to do is start treating that person as if they didn't hurt you. I know that might sound like a lot, but remember, we're focusing on ourselves. Regardless of what you might think, it takes a lot of energy to be mean to people and to treat people like they hurt you. And so the quicker you can start treating them as if they're a stranger, as if they're someone that you maybe have never had any kind of interaction with, the easier it will be for you to start to let that go. And so I'm not saying like go out and try to be besties with them or anything like that, but treat them as you would a stranger. Like, be cordial, be kind, be nice, but as if it was someone that you just met off the street. The reason this is often such a difficult thing to do is that you don't want them to think that you've forgiven them. Like, you don't want them to have the satisfaction of continuing to get nice things from you, and it feels like maybe they're taking advantage of you in some way. If you think about it that way, that's exactly what it's going to feel like. However, being kind to people frees up your emotional energy. Again, it takes a lot more for you to be mean to someone internally. It might take a lot more force for you to be nice to people, but internally, in terms of like your well-being, it's a lot harder for you to be mean to people rather than just saying, you know what, you're a human being, I'm going to allow you to be a human being, I'm going to treat you courteously as if you are a human being, and this is for me, this is not for you. It doesn't matter how they respond. You're focusing on your healing, and if your healing requires you to be kind to people, focus on yourself again and be kind to everyone. God said that vengeance is his. Stop trying to make people pay for the hurt that they've caused you. Give it to God. Let him handle it. He can do far worse to people than you can. That's not your role. That's not your job. That's not your battle. Focus on opening your heart to receive kindness, opening your heart to give kindness, and let everything else fall into place. The other thing that I would suggest is not following them on social media. I feel like this is a given, but sometimes I have to be very clear about this with people. Like, unfollow these people, unfriend them, block them, whatever all the other lingo is on the other social media sites. It's not worth it. Like, you're probably not going to like their pictures anyway. You don't want to watch their videos. You probably scroll past it. Why are you still following them? That is unnecessary energy that you're continuing to allow in your life. Let it go. And then if you want to take it a step further, I know I'm pushing it, but if you want to take it a step further, do something nice for them. Again, I'm not saying go broke trying to do something nice for someone that you're trying to forgive, but a kind gesture goes a long way for you. Think about how you feel when you do good things for people, not because you're obligated, not because you have to, but because you want to. Find it in the goodness of your heart to do something kind for someone. Like, I always think about the examples when you're in a drive-thru and the person behind you is honking and all mad and angry and in a rush, and then the person in the front, you, pay for their food and they get this nice little treat. You feel good because you just did something for someone, and maybe it can also soften their heart. Not saying that we're doing this for the other person. Like I said, it's all about you, but you just never know how your kindness can change someone else. Now, the last part that we'll talk about, or the last situation that we'll talk about, is people who you do want to be a part of your life, that you do want to have a relationship, your family, your friends, your significant others who have hurt you or offended you. Those people, you have to put your pride aside, you have to put your feelings aside, acknowledge them, but put them aside for a moment and talk to the person that hurt you. You have to practice love with those people because you want to have a relationship with them. You want to heal that relationship along with yourself. And so that means that you have to be patient, you have to be kind. You cannot keep a record of all of their wrongdoings and throw it up in their face after they do one more thing. Nope, cannot do that. You have to be selfless. The reason this is so important is because, again, we established our goal in the beginning. You have a goal that you're trying to achieve. You cannot continue to be petty and bitter and mean towards that person if you want to give and receive more love in that relationship. If your goal is to tear the relationship apart, sure, go for it. If it's not, if you want to reconcile in this relationship, you have to practice showing them love. And in that, you have to communicate. Like, you have to tell them what's wrong. It helps so much if you just open your mouth and say, this is what you did to me. This is how I felt. And allow them the opportunity to change. A lot of times we'll give people feedback and then the next day it's like, but you still did this wrong. Allow them the opportunity to do something different. Now, on one side of this is that they keep doing things that you need to forgive them for. You have to do one of two things. A, you do some self-reflection and figure out what it is about you that causes you to keep being offended by these things. For me, I was a very sensitive person. I probably still am, still an area that I'm working on, but I was a lot more sensitive a few years ago, particularly when my husband and I started dating. And so he could say very small, now that I look back on them, insignificant things, and my feelings would be hurt. And like I said, I would talk about them, I would mention it, but it got to a point where I had to sit down and be honest with myself, like, what is wrong with you that you continue to keep being sensitive about these things? And that helped me to grow in our relationship. B, the other side of that is that if you keep being offended by things that your partner is doing, they're not changing, they're not making any progress, you really have to question whether or not this is the person that you need to be in a relationship with. But I think that in either of those situations, that honesty with yourself and that self-reflection is so important in making a decision on how to move forward. So that's it. Focus on being selfish relationally by forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and if necessary, forgiving God or asking God to help you with forgiveness so that you can have authentic, genuine, intimate relationships with people. Now, I am so excited about May for two reasons. One, the Art of Being Selfish will have its first guest on, and actually first several guests on. I'm really excited about welcoming people onto the couch and into these sessions. And then the other thing is just that we are going to be doing a series to honor Mother's Day. I'm just talking about motherhood. I'm not going to tell you too much right here, so make sure you all go follow me on social media to get updates and see what we're going to be doing every week. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope that you all will join me. So see y'all next Selfish Saturday. Bye.